Hello, welcome to another UTS Startups Confessions. This is stressful for me every week, but can you tell me, and we'll get to the point of this video in a second, what it's like being on stage with tens of thousands of people waiting for you to perform?
It's exhilarating. It's honestly not that bad because you don't see the audience members unless they're wearing fluoro, in which case we can see them. Yeah, it's very exciting.
Okay, that makes me feel better. Thank you very much. Because you have an incredible story behind the company that you've launched and your own backgrounds that we're going to get to now. So, in 10 seconds, if you can, what is Asendium?
Asendium is a RegTech advice tech solution that helps financial planning businesses produce advice more efficiently and more cost effectively so they can service more Australians. And essentially what we do is remove the duplication and manual transfer of data that happens through the advice production process through automation and integrations.
Okay, you got that? Help me understand how people prepare financial advice at the moment, because it sounds like that should be something that already happens.
Yeah, so a little background, I used to be a financial planner, and a lot of the process is incredibly manual. So a lot of the technology on the market today actually doesn't talk to each other. You'll have one technology for one part of the process, another technology for another part, and if those two don't talk to each other, it's a very manual process to transfer data, and a lot of planners do still prepare advice on paper in Word doc or Excel. So that's the current landscape as it is right now.
Okay, so you have an incredible solution that we'll describe properly in a second that is digitizing that, automating that, making these people a lot more efficient in providing financial advice.
Correct.
Okay, who were you before starting Asendium?
Well, I was a contemporary dancer and I did a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Dance Performance at QUT. And when I finished that degree, I toured Australia with Disney's Lion King tour for 2 years, and that was the best experience I could ever have. And once I finished at that musical, I decided to transition out of performing arts and into a career that still provided me with the creativity that I desired, but also allowed me to have freedom to create products or services that would help make a positive impact in people's lives. And at that time, Scott was running a financial planning business, and that's when I was introduced to the world of financial planning and the great work that he was doing there. So I joined his company as an office administration, as well as being in charge of the marketing, and it was through that process I found the problems that the industry was facing.
So getting neck deep in admin and,
Yep.
and hating the admin that they go through, maybe?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so my background is financial services. So I've been in financial services for over a decade. Started out in financial planning. So I started right at the bottom actually doing administration, then working up into engaging with advisors as support, and then becoming a planner myself. I did that for many years with my team, and we're lucky enough to be joined by Sharon. And funny enough, when she was on the tour, I was actually working with a lot of the cast to provide financial advice. So it was a good thing that she was able to come join afterwards, bring that creativity, and then we actually worked on starting to plan for Asendium after we found the problem.
Okay, so tell me more about that. What are your first memories of this as an idea?
So my first memory was I'd been working 7 days a week, an enormous amount of hours, and everything I was doing was just transferring data from one paper to another piece of paper to another system, and I calculate about 50% of my time each year was spent just transferring data. And I thought, all these large companies worth billions of dollars with endless budgets aren't actually solving the specific problem the planner faces. They were trying to solve onboarding, or they were trying to solve a prettier document. It wasn't actually the pain point the planner was facing. So my earliest memory is going, yeah, this has to change. And I thought if all these large companies and licensees aren't going to do it, then we should actually set out to do it.
Okay, so I'm sure other people have had that thought. What allowed you to start to solve it? Because it's one thing to say there's a lot of different systems here and they all kind of suck. But to say, okay, we need to sit down and figure out a unified solution, so this is one system that works perfectly. How do you go to that point?
So before starting financial advice, I had a hairline. You can see that kind of changed by doing financial advice, and I realized that the stress that planners are under, it does impact them both physically, mentally, and health-wise, and I wanted to have an impact. So I became a financial planner because I wanted to help clients, Australians. But then I couldn't do that as well as I wanted to, so I thought, okay, well, in order to help more Australians, I have to help more planners. And so I left advice and took the team with me, and we spent 2 years speaking to every stakeholder we could possibly find in the industry, doing market testing, designing documentation, processes, procedures.
Speaking with advisors.
Finding out their pain points, trying to isolate the key issues. And when we isolated those issues, it was all about data. The more data you have, the more data you have structured, because a lot of the data in this industry is unstructured. So we went, okay, well, we have to structure this data. Get structured data for conversations, structured data for the finances. And so when we isolated that it was 4 key documents, we went, okay, well, if there's 4 key documents and spread across all these technologies, let's integrate all these technologies and integrate all these 4 documents within one ecosystem. So when you log into Asendium, the goal was you would log in, you'd be able to do all the documents at once, all your team would be able to work at the same time, and you would get out the right solution for the client.
Yep. We started with designing compliance documents that were sold online to test the interest for that. And during that time when we were doing that, I felt that we needed more of an education understanding of what it meant to take an idea and to commercialize it. And so I joined the MBAE course at UTS, and it was through that course I learned about how scalable technology can be. So I brought that back to the team. We decided to put those advice documents into technology to be able to scale it across Australia and internationally, or to different other industries as well. So that's kind of how it all started. Then in 2019, we built an MVP, particularly focused on file notes, because at that time Royal Commission had just occurred, and the biggest pain point advisors were feeling was their file notes, where they were spending 1 to 2 hours manually doing. And so through our MVP, we're able to bring that time down to under 10 minutes. And that was a really big validation point for us that we were on the right track, and this was a problem worth solving.
Okay.
And through our MVP, we built a great community of advisors, and some of those advisors ended up being investors in us. And that's sort of, yeah. You want to add anything to that?
No, that's perfect.
Okay.
That's kind of interesting, though, the idea that you had customers that also ended up being investors. How did you find that compared to what most people talk about of getting VCs on board or other kinds?
Well, I did take the traditional journey of VCs, which is all the craze, but after meeting dozens and dozens and dozens of VCs, I identified a trend that was the VC market in Australia. They're all looking for the next Canva. They're looking for a solution that requires no change, that is portable to any market, that requires no other changes or input. And they want that to just be what they invest in. And I also found VCs were very specific about what they invested in. So if they say they're early stage VCs, you're either too early or too late. So if you're $1 over their range, you're not in there. Or we're late stage, but you're too early or you're too late. So, and because this wasn't all available when you meet, you'd go through multiple rounds of meetings, and then in the end, they never say no, they just say, you'll hear from us. Then you never hear from them. So I don't think the VC route was right for our industry or our solution. So what we did was we pivoted. So we're too small for private equity, but VCs, it was very hard to find a solution. So we went to our customers. And so the first 5 meetings I had, within 1 minute of the presentation completing, I had a check written. It's because our customers actually experienced the problem, experienced the pain, and the pain was so bad that they would actually part with cash to invest in a solution that alleviated that pain.
I love this as an approach, especially if you have customers that are in a financial position to throw some money into things, which in a lot of cases you would. Do you find, excuse me, other benefits in terms of lock-in or guidance from them or other kinds of partnerships that come from this kind of investment that wouldn't happen from an external VC?
Yeah, so they're great because they are also our customers. They're fantastic beta testers, and they're very dedicated and motivated to give us honest feedback, which is fantastic for our growth. As well as 73% of tech adoption in the industry is from peer-to-peer referrals. So because they've really tried it, they've implemented our software, they're motivated, they believe in what we do, they are able to refer their friends and fellow peers and be able to help us grow.
Yeah, and I find that feedback is great because it's very constructive. So it's not just it's bad or you don't have this, it's guided about is where it would be great to take it because it solves these problems. The introduction to clients is great, and also the introduction to other planners and investors. So if our investors really want something, we say, well, look, we can do that if we achieve this. And so they'll actually go introduce other planners who will then subsequently invest. So when we need capital or further raising or beta testers or feedback, we have an amazing community of customers/investors.
Okay. There's another side to this, like raising money is fine, but then how do you spend the money? I know you only recently started actually paying yourself, yes. Or one of you did. Tell me about that, because going from running a company that's going well and deriving income from that, incomes, to going into what? How did you afford to start this?
We moved back home. That was step one. And step two is, most of us took 2 jobs, partly working on Asendium and then taking either a retail or a cafe job just to pay the bills. That was a lot of the first 2 years.
So it started with we realized that if we're leaving our 6-figure business to build this solution, which has more applicability, I would have to give up that 6-figure income. So in order to pursue this, we gave up a lot. And so by giving up that income, we realized that we had funding which would survive a period of time, but we calculated that over time, that will run out in terms of getting everything we need in our company up and running. So we decided to move back home, and we have a great supportive family, and that enabled us to work with no rent. And we also joined UTS Startups, which gave us free office space. And so having somewhere to work and also somewhere to live, and it's very cost effective, we were able to focus solely on the business. Sharon worked in retail and then came and worked in marketing creative. William worked at a cafe early in the morning, then came and coded all night. I spent 7 days a week with planners. I did meetings with planners in the US, Canada, UK to make sure this was a global problem. And so meeting between 12 midnight and 2 a.m, it's quite challenging, and then getting up the next day to continue on doing what we're doing. Okay. But we're lucky that we started our first salary last year after 4 years.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I know it's not something people normally put in their biographies, but it's important for people watching this to understand that kind of thing, because it's the most common question that I get asked of how do I afford to start this thing. Sydney is the second most expensive place in the world to live, and there's like no shame in cutting down costs to make something work. It's a requirement. Okay, so another part of this is I understand you're involved with each other.
Yes.
Somewhat. I am familiar with this person.
Yeah. How long have you been together?
We've been together 9 years.
Okay.
So before we started Asendium, before we started working together, when we first started dating, she told me she was in The Lion King, and this was when she was working in retail at the time. And funny enough, I thought it was, it's probably some like back alley Lion King, but then I saw her face on Disney's Lion King, and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And so I was lucky to meet someone as amazing as her. But then because she was on The Lion King, we had to do long distance while she was in Melbourne, Brisbane, traveling around the country. So doing long distance while starting a relationship and then moving to working together, then starting a company together has been quite a journey.
Okay. So we'll get back to whether you recommend that for other people or not. But the point is, like, it's been a hell of a journey. Where is Asendium today after 4 years?
Yeah. Today we have 46 users. We have 8 full-time employees, which is fantastic, and it takes a huge load off our backs. And we've just completed 3 very big integrations. So we're very happy with the process and the progress.
Yeah, we also have 3 additional contractors, 2 people on our advisory board. We're a handful of investors. We closed our first 1.1 million last year, and we've received a further 2 million over the last 9 months. So and that's all from financial planners.
Okay, and so all people that are promoting this, giving feedback on this, what's coming up next in terms of where to from here?
Yeah, so we're just about to start a capital raise for $10 million in the second half of this year. This will allow us to further integrate and automate our solution. So we'll be connecting to CRMs located in the US. We'll be finishing our connection to every CRM in the Australian financial planning ecosystem, as well as niche tech, fact-find tools, research tools, as well as moving into connecting to the ASX to go into stockbroking and connecting to mortgage broking aggregation software. So we are looking to become the most connected ecosystem across industries over the next 18 months.
Okay. This is incredible. I'm sorry for saying something obvious from the story so far, but for me, I love that Asendium enables people to run their own practice more easily. Or for people that are working their backsides off to run a practice, it makes their life more efficient, lets them help more people. It makes financial advice more accessible, more reliable, and you get to have this incredible company that's scaling up to be how big in the next couple of years?
We do plan on going over to the US and Canada and beginning that research later this year, early next year.
Okay, we'll see what the number ends up being, but it's going to be impressive. No doubt enabled by the financial planning kind of backgrounds that you have and the bond that you have together. I think co-founder relationships work a lot better when you already know someone. You know exactly what you're getting yourselves into.
Yeah.
If you could go back 4 years and tell yourselves anything, imagine you're talking down the camera to yourself. Do you have any advice?
Yes, this journey will be difficult, but it'll also be the most rewarding journey that you could possibly go on. And also, however long you think something's going to take, double that, and then double it again. And then that's how long it's really going to take.
But still do it.
But still do it, yeah.
So I agree with that sentiment. I would tell myself the next 4 to 5 years is going to be some of the hardest years you will experience, but also some of the most rewarding. And what I found is that be open to opportunity. So we wouldn't have met our CTO if we just didn't have a LinkedIn message. Wouldn't have met our private equity advisor, wouldn't have met our legal advisor, wouldn't have met investors. So just be open to opportunity and conversation in any form that comes your way.
Okay. So speaking of opportunity, we do run these sessions every Friday at 3:30. Please come down and join us. We're going to turn off the cameras in a second, go into Q&A with the audience, and we'll get into the juicier questions that we don't cover in the stream. But Asendium is amazing. It's asendium.com. It sounds like there's still time to get into that $10 million round, maybe, if the people are fast enough that are out there. If you have financial advisors that aren't using Asendium, you could make their life a whole lot easier by referring them.
Yep.
Would anything else be helpful at the moment?
I think you pretty much covered
it.
Okay, thank you very much. Please join me in thanking Sharon and Scott.
Thank you.